This is Chick2Chick Uncut, raw and unfiltered.
So we've done podcasts in the past on human trafficking, and a big part of that, a big element of it, sex trafficking. We've talked about the problem. It is a problem. It's not just happening here in this country, but it is a worldwide problem. Estimated some 27 million victims of human trafficking and sex trafficking. We've talked about the signs of help that we should be looking for, that if we see a child or we see someone in the back of a car and they're making hand signals, they're showing the signs of help. And we've talked about programs and organizations that are there to pull these victims out of this lifestyle and to give them another chance. But here's the thing. We have not talked to a victim of sex trafficking. We have not talked to them about the horrors that they've endured, and we haven't talked to them about how they got out of this lifestyle. Which brings us to our guest today. Nikki, you are a victim of sex trafficking. You got away from this lifestyle, and you're coming on the podcast to share your story, and I cannot thank you enough for coming on this podcast. So thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
So, Nikki, let's start from the very beginning. Let's talk about your childhood. Let's talk about your family. Let's talk about where you were raised. Tell us all about that.
So I grew up in Michigan. I was raised by my mother up until I was about 12. Then I chose to go live with my father. My mom grew up poor. She didn't have a very good upbringing herself. She had abusive parents. My mom had an addiction problem to pills and to men. She would choose her men over her own kids, was her downside. So when I was 12, I chose to go live with my father. He raised me the best he could, as I thought. My dad was an alcoholic, but he held a job down his whole life. So that's the one thing I could say. Even though his drinking was a problem, he did make sure us kids were taken care of, had a roof over our house, and we were fed. So I looked at my dad as being like my best friend at the time.
You said something. You said your mom chose her men over her own children. Did any of these men abuse you as a child?
Yes. My mom was married to this man, and his brother lived with us for a while. My whole family grew up in Michigan, but my mom had ties to people in Pennsylvania. And so my mom had got with this guy who was unable to get a driver's license in the state of Michigan. So they decided he was big into hunting. They decided to come to PA because my mom had ties to Pennsylvania, and he would start over in Pennsylvania because it was a Commonwealth state. Things wouldn't show up, and he could get a driver's license here. So they moved here to Pennsylvania, and mind you, from 12 to about 16, I really didn't have a relationship with my mom. We would talk here on the phone, but I hadn't seen her. So when I decided to come out to PA to spend some time with my mom for the summer and to live out here for a year, give it a try out. And her guy that she was with, that she ended up getting married to during that time, his brother came out to live with us and start a new life. One night, it normally was never an issue because his older brother, who I looked at as like an uncle, he would go to work at night. And so when I'd be at home sleeping, he'd be at work. And then when I would go to school, he'd come home from work. So it was never like a passing between us. except for the weekends. But normally on the weekends, I would go to my friend's house. Well, the one weekend, my mom told me I couldn't go over to my friend's house that lived down the street because I had been gone every weekend going to school. She wanted me home where she could see me. And that night, I stayed up late watching TV and fell asleep on the one couch. There was 2 couches in her living room. And I woke up to him masturbating over my face. And it scared me so bad being young. I ran up to the bathroom, and I was scared to tell my mom at first because he was known to be a violent type of dude. This guy had previously been in a relationship with my aunt before, which that's a whole story in itself. And so I went to the bathroom, and I remember grabbing a scrubby pad and scrubbing my face until I had cuts all over and falling asleep in front of my mom's door. When she awoke the next morning, she asked me what was going on, and I was afraid to tell her, and I just cried about wanting to go to my friend's house. And when she said I couldn't go, I broke down and started crying, and then that's when I told her, and she told me I could go to my friend's house. And later that night, my mom and her husband showed up over at my friend's house to ask me my side of the story, what happened. I told them. They kicked the guy out of the house, but then within 2 weeks, I was labeled as a problem child, and my dad had called me to tell me that my mother had called him and told him that he had 24 hours to send her a bus ticket or she was putting me in foster care.
Oh. Wow.
Yeah.
And how did you feel when your mom said this? Like, how did that make you feel?
Like she chose a man over her own daughter again.
So you go back to your dad.
Yes.
And then what happens?
I live with my dad. That's dropping out of school. I went through skipping school a lot. My dad was married to this woman who was very abusive, mentally and verbally, not so much physically. It was more mentally, emotionally, because we weren't her kids. She hated us because we weren't her kids. We reminded her of our mother. She didn't like our mom. It was so bad as I was not allowed to keep baby pictures if they had my mom in the photo inside the house. I had to keep them in the garage. There was nights where she would scream and yell at us if we were sick. I remember not being, like growing up as a kid, holidays, her kids would get it all. We would get very little.
Did you finally leave?
In the streets.
Did you finally leave? What happened?
So they divorced for a while, and my dad started sleeping with other random girls from the bars, and we didn't get along. So after I finished high school, when I was 18, I decided to take off from my dad's house, and that's when I joined like a traveling company.
A traveling company that did what?
Selling magazines at the time.
Okay.
And that's how I ended up back in PA, because I realized it was a shady company. And so 7 years had went by that I hadn't spoken to my mom. And at that point, me being an adult, when I realized it was a shady company and we were in Pennsylvania, I decided to reach out to my mom to see if I could build a relationship with her. And I was in PA. I looked at it as maybe a sign I'm an adult. Maybe we could start fresh. And when I realized that it was still the same aspect, I left my mom's again, started seeing a guy, and next thing you know, I was working in the strip clubs.
You're working in a strip club. How old were you?
I first walked into the strip club, I was 22.
Talk to us about what that life was like. You're 22 years old and you're working in a strip club.
Well, prior, I never thought that I would work in a strip club. But I was on Craigslist one day and I had a friend over and I was looking for a job. I just got done with the magazine thing. And at the time I was working at a local newspaper company, but it was still sales, door-to-door sales. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I just got out of this. This ain't what I want to do. So I was online looking on Craigslist for jobs. And there was an ad posted looking for dancers. And me being a smart one, I was like, oh, I should go be a stripper. And my friend was like, you should do it. And I was like, yeah, right, I'm not going to be no stripper. She was like, you're right, you ain't got the balls to do it. So I said, let me try. I'm going to show you. So I went to the club, and my audition, I made like $300 some, and I was like, oh, wow, this is easy. I can do this. That's what got me hooked. Being a girl that had really no support, easy money, I figured I could just do this for a little while and get on top. At first, I can say that it got addicting, and there was probably nothing that would have stopped me at any point in time. I would tell people it was a good workout and it kept me in shape. I made money, but at the end of the day, there's so much that can go wrong in that atmosphere.
What do you mean by that? What went wrong in that atmosphere?
It's easy to be so vulnerable and to have people manipulate you, because it does sound stereotypical, but it's true. A lot of the girls in there have a background or a story to tell. There's a reason why you're up there doing it. There's a reason why you're comfortable doing it. Because, and I say that because I know the woman I am today, you'd never catch me up there. Like, ever. But the dangers to it is, it's easy to get set up and tricked, and there are bad people out there that want to take advantage of you and treat you like you're just a prize or a money token.
So you mentioned it's easy to get set up and get tricked. And I think that leads into how you became a victim of sex trafficking. I want you to tell your story. I want you to let everyone know what happened to you and how you got sucked into this life and became a victim of sex trafficking. I also want to warn some of our listeners and viewers that what you're about to say may be very difficult for them to hear, but I think it's important that you tell your story and that you're very transparent so that they understand this is happening. So how were you tricked? What happened at that strip club?
So I working at this club one night, and I get approached by another dancer in the club asking about a circuit. In the clubs, they call a circuit where groups of girls will join together and they'll travel during the slow season, or depending where you're at, we call it the winter season, slow season, where people aren't out and about spending money because it's too cold to be out. So you'll hit other states and go to other clubs in warmer areas to try to make money. They call it a circuit. So I had a girl from a club that I normally don't work at ask me if I wanted to do a circuit. At this point in time, I'm living in a hotel. Rent's for the week is almost due. It's been short, and I'm short on cash. And I'm like, what the hell? Like, I'll just do it. I have nothing to lose. I might as well risk it, and we'll go do this circuit. So this girl and I assume her boyfriend show up a couple days later at the hotel to pick me up to go do this circuit. We're supposed to be going to Delaware first. We get in the car, we're smoking, talking, driving up the way up there. I get tired, I go to sleep. Wake up, it's late at night. They're like, we're here, we got the room. Go inside. When we wake up in the morning, we'll go and check out the clubs. Okay, cool. They fall asleep on one bed, I fall asleep on the other bed. Didn't ask no questions, went to sleep. When I woke up, they were gone, and there was a black man with a gun sitting by the door and told me that I was mine and that I was his and that I had been sold to him. So then he proceeded to hit me across the face with his gun and rape me. And then he held me in that room. I think it was about 3 or 4 days where I was trafficked in that room before I was blindfolded, put in a car, and transported to another hotel to have that done for another 3 or 4 days.
So you don't even know where you are at this point?
I have no idea. I did not find out where I was. They had me in rooms where I was being trafficked by random men that would hit up the phone and come into the room and do whatever it is that they wanted to do to me. Mind you, while he was in the room the entire time because he would not leave the room. He would stand there in the back, in the corner, in the bathroom, but he would be in that room.
Watching. These other people abuse you, rape you.
Yes.
How long did this go on?
He had me total for about 2 weeks. And then it wasn't until there was a young white kid, and he looked younger than me, but he came into the room, and he, if this makes any sense at all, but at this point, I just felt dead. I've been in this room, he's had me for about a week and a half, like I just felt dead inside. But this kid that came in seemed more nervous than I was, or anybody that's ever come into the room. Like, he seemed nervous. And said right to the guy, to me, he said this was his first time ever doing this, and he had heard about this site through a friend. And he said that he would pay my trafficker double if my trafficker would leave the room because he did not feel comfortable with him being there. My trafficker agreed because he had another girl in the room next door that was like, I would say it was his main girl because she was on drugs and she wouldn't leave. Like, she was his girl. So he agreed, but he took half of the money. The guy paid my trafficker half the money, and he told the guy to be on the wall when he was done with me so that he could come back over and collect the rest. Well, when my trafficker walked over, and it happened in split seconds, but as soon as he went next door, I heard the door click shut, and I grabbed my bag that I had. Remember him sitting in the bathroom on the towel rack above where he had my bag of stuff. I grabbed my bag of stuff and I looked at the young kid and I said, "Thank you," and I ran out the door as fast as I could.
You ran as fast as you could, and where did you go?
I ran as fast as I could go. I remember from the hotel or motel where I was being held at, I had to run across a long yard, across train tracks, and all I could see in the sky was a big bright letters that said TA truck stop. And I've known that gas stations, especially truck stops, are open 24 hours. So it's a place with cameras that I could get inside and hide. And so I ran inside the truck stop and I hid in the bathroom.
For how long?
So I was actually in the truck stop for 3 days before I was found. I would hide in the bathroom, and then they have like little sections in the truck stops where they have like TVs and like recliner chairs, massage chairs, so people can sit and relax when they're on their layovers or traveling. And so I would alternate between walking around the store, hiding in the bathroom stall to take naps, and sitting in the TV room because I was so scared to talk to anybody, and I didn't know who I could trust, because there was even a cop in uniform that had came to the motel where I was being trafficked at during that time. So I didn't trust anybody to talk to anybody. So I would alternate in those 3 areas, and just, if I felt like I was sitting in one area for too long, then I would relocate or go hide in the bathroom, because it's like I wanted to be safe, but I didn't know who I could trust to talk to at the same point in time.
So my understanding is finally a trucker came up to you and talked to you. And so tell us about that. What happened?
Yeah, so it was one of the employees that was working. One of the ladies had noticed me in there and felt like something was suspicious, but they couldn't figure out what, because I wasn't stealing anything. I wasn't taking anything. I wasn't talking to anybody. I was just kind of there. And I would appear and disappear, but I just wasn't going anywhere. Yeah. And so they had brought it to their manager's attention. And he had came up to approach me, but at that time there was a homeless guy who had came in with his bags and was sleeping in the one massage chair. And he came up to him and he kind of like nudged him and was like, "Hey guy, you got to kind of move along. There's no soliciting in here." And so the guy gets up and he leaves, and then he looks over at me because I was sitting in the corner watching the TV, and he was like, "Can I talk to you for a minute?" And I walk over to him, and he was like, "So what's going on?" And I just broke down in tears, and I told him everything that happened and what was going on. And I was like, "I don't even know where I'm at this point." And he was like, "Well, you're in South Carolina." And so then he helped me go to his office and get in touch with Truckers Against Trafficking that he's with. And I made a report through them, and then he helped me get in touch with Peace Promise. Peace Promise would come into the strip clubs, and pretty much they would let us girls know, like, "We're here, you're loved, you ever need anything, reach out." Like, they were just girls that would come hang out for a little while. But they were safe people you could reach out to if you were in need. So after I got with Charles, the truck stop manager, we made the report with Tad, and then I knew about the organizations that would come into the clubs. So I called the club I worked at, and they just so happened this one organization was there that night that knew Peace Promise. So they reached out to Peace Promise so I could get in touch with Patty. And Patty instantly called me. And I told her what happened. I sent her the picture of my face, bruised up. And she instantly Western Union me money so I could get food and snacks and a bus ticket to bring me back home, and spoke with Charles to make sure that I would be okay and that he would watch over me for the night, and he brought me back home to safety.
You're really lucky. I want to go back to those 2 weeks that you were trapped in that hotel room, that you were sex trafficked. What were you thinking when this was going on? What?
So many, at first, I was like, I blamed myself for what did I get myself into, for trusting these people. Am I going to make it out? I thought I was going to die. There was times where I remember feeling like I was going to die, that I felt dead inside. There's thoughts of how can a grown man get off on seeing a girl just lying there, not into it, bloody face, black and blue eye, crying, face red, looking sick, underweight. Like, it's a lot of not understanding.
It's horrific. It's horrific. Do you have any idea how many men would come in and out of your room in the course of one day?
5, 6.
5 or 6. And there was nothing you could do about it. Nothing. You were trapped.
When you got a man there with a gun to your head, there's not much you can do.
Did you beg him? Did you say, please, let me go?
I begged, I cried. He had me. There was nowhere I was going to go. He was by me every step of the way until that kid came into that room.
And you ran and got away. Yeah. Thank God you got out of that situation. Thank God you were able to escape. Tell us where you are now. You got away. And Peace Promise, which is a fantastic organization, as you said, they go in and they get women out of this situation. Where are you now, and how have you turned your life around?
So now, since coming home, well, after I got back, Peace Promise had helped put me up in a hotel for about a week until I could get into, I had decided to voluntarily check myself into a safe house program so I could go through intense therapy, treatment, and basically start from the ground up and build my life back up again. So because I didn't have any kids, it was a lot easier for me to be able to go to a safe house program away from everything. And I checked myself into, I decided to go with a program that was 1 to 2 years long. During that 1 to 2 years, I stayed there for a total of about 18 and a half months. While going through intense treatment and therapy, I also put myself through beauty school at the program. I wanted to me, being trafficked and going through that was a huge wake-up call for me. And being saved, it was like a chance to have a new life and start all over again. And I was forever done with that side of the world. So when I chose my safe house, at first I was handed a list of like 10 different safe house programs. And I went through all of them. Some of them were like 30 days, some were 3 to 6 months. But knowing what I went through for those 2 weeks, I knew I wasn't going to be right from it, and it was something that was going to be with me for a long time. So I needed to go big or go home, and so I chose the safe house that had the longest amount of stay and had the most to offer. And in their pamphlet, it showed that if you wanted to go back to school or finish a degree, that they would help you get there. And I'm like, I'm there for 1 to 2 years. I might as well put myself through school. So when I leave this program, I have something to build off of. So I put myself through beauty school, completed beauty school while I was there, and got my cosmetology license. Since coming home, I now am a survivor advocate for Peace Promise. So I help out with a lot of the ladies that come in that aren't where I am right now, or are still struggling to get there. I am assistant salon leader at a hair salon. I have my own place, my own car. I have a family now that I can count on for sure. That's been there for me through my whole situation, and have had my back and have shown up for me.
So you're not just surviving, you're thriving.
I am.
Now. You managed to get out of this horrific situation, and you've turned your life around. And how beautiful now that you're helping other women who were in a similar situation. As we wrap up this podcast, what are some of your final thoughts that you want people to know about what happened to you? And what are some final thoughts that you want to share with women who might have been through a similar situation to let them know there's hope? There's hope.
Pretty much like the woman I was back then is nowhere near the woman I am today. And the journey of going through what some of us have had to gone through is hard, but if you find a program that I have that works for you, as long as you trust the process, it really does work.
And you can turn your life around. And you don't have to be.
It's not easy. Yeah. And like I told someone today, yes, coming and starting all over and working from the ground up and having to deal with the uncomfortable is hard. But if you really sit down and think about it, all that crap that we just went through was way harder than anything we have to go through now. Well,
you're amazing. I'm so glad that you got out of that. I'm so glad that you escaped. That you have a second chance and you've turned your life around. And most of all, I'm so thankful that you came on the podcast and you were willing to share your story and let other people know that this is a problem. This is going on and it has to stop. So thank you for coming on the podcast, Nikki.
Thank you.
All right. And thank you for tuning in, for watching, for listening. Please head over to our YouTube channel, Chick2Chick USA. Like and subscribe. That way you'll get notifications every time we come out with a new podcast episode. And we will be back soon with a new podcast episode.